All right, yeah. So, if you're in the chat, just letting you know this is part of Let's Game Tokyo's global game jam site. If you are um, not familiar with it, or if you're not familiar with global game jam, it's kind of related. It is a site for global game jam, but at the same time, CJ and Maybes have been making this site for quite a few years now. I'm not in Tokyo anymore. I used to be, and I participated at their site almost every year in the past years, but I've moved back home. So I'm not able to participate this year, but I did want to give a talk to help them with this, what they organize. I really do like their site, and it's really fun. So if you are in Tokyo, I know they are sold out at the moment, but they are taking remote spots. So it's from January 24th to January 26th. It's a bilingual site in Tokyo. On-site seats are sold out, and remote spots are open for 1,000 yen. I'm going to share the sign-up link if some people are interested. Thank you, guys. Oh, yes, thank you. Awesome. And hello, welcome. I will be at another site in Montreal, at the Unity site, which is a bit funny because I won't be using Unity. But yeah, oh, that reminds me. I feel like I should post it um, in this other server, this talk, just to let me do that. Let's see. Here we go. Copied. Just to propagate it a bit elsewhere. You'll hear my keyboard anytime I type. It's very clicky. I didn't use that. It's my old keyboard I had back home. It is a very clicky keyboard. I like it, but it does make a lot of sound. Oh, wait a second. Did my post? Oh yeah, okay, it's fine. I don't usually stream. I used to stream a bit more during when it was pandemic, more lockdown, but now it's just for these types of events. So I'm a bit used to it, but at the same time not. This link did not work. Give me 1 second here. That was good though, that was open. Let's see. I don't know why. Just post. All right. So in any case, last part about the Let's Game Tokyo site is that where did that go? Ah, yes. So CJ told me that if 1,000 yen is difficult, just ping them on Discord. And the reason that they charge is that they don't have sponsors and that they want to make the jam accessible and have stuff for the people there. And having been there the past years, they really do their best to do to create a really nice environment. So even last year, I was like, you guys should start charging. It's gotten more popular and spaces do fill out and it's really fun. So it's completely normal. So please understand. Yeah. Now with that attitude, I'm joking. Don't eat the stickers. All right. So this talk is about. This is actually. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a sponsorship either. Uh, I do remember the first time I was at the site, they had a bit more going on. They gave bread, if I remember, canned bread with the Japanese Unity mascot, which I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And now I guess it's just stickers. It's, it's not the same. So yes, this this talk is about uh, making your making more with your jam. So that's why it's called building upon the shoulders of your jam. Uh, I feel like you guys would appreciate the logo I made for it, the very quick first page of the jam, of the talk, and so um, it was actually I think CJ that pitched me the idea of like making a talk about working on your game afterwards because I I do have a tendency to build upon my game jam to like make a post jam build. I don't do it every time, and that's part of the talk actually. But I am that type of jammer that like okay I've done something and I kind of want to do a bit more, and I think more people should because I think it's a good process. So my forward for unlike my last year talks, I do have a bit more notes ready for this year. So I just wanted to say something for like if you're a first time jammer, do not worry. Like I'm not like don't worry about post jam stuff just now. I'm sure you have a lot on your mind for just your first jam, which is completely normal. And so uh, your attention is like more focused on okay, this is my first jam, what am I going to do? And it is probably better to focus on like your first jam experience more than anything else. But I think that it is something that if even if it's your first jam, once you're done, you can think about this part. Um, because I feel like no matter what jam you do, no matter the game you make during your jam, no matter the game I made during my jams in the past, there's always something that at the end I'm like, what can I do after this? Like, I'm done, but you look at something you've made, and it's not just for game jams. I feel like it's anything you create. You're always like, oh, is there something I can change? Is there something I can add? Um, and some of these advice that I'm gonna give or encouragements that I'm gonna give is kind of focused on like the part where you can set yourself up to be able to do that. I think that if I think sometimes I'll talk about it later, but there are some situations where you're like, I could do this, but maybe it's a bit too far. Um, a good example is just like scope. Maybe if you make a big project for the jam, it might be difficult to build up on it because bigger projects are harder to build up on sometimes. So yeah, don't worry about it. It's your first jam. Just have fun. But let's get into it. So I went with a very simple premise for this talk. Um, so the first thing I asked myself, and that I imagine everyone asks themselves after the jam, like I said, is uh, why would you build upon your jam? And everyone will have their own reasons. And there are as many reasons as there are jams. So let's look at a few of them. Very simple reasons, too. Uh, so, for the satisfaction, that's probably the first one I think of because after I finish a jam, like I said, there's always something I want to change, something I want to add to the game, something that's missing, or some very obvious bug. Maybe not obvious to others. Don't forget that. You'll see. Hopefully, when you play other people's games, uh, you'll notice that they won't notice the bug you noticed. So it all depends. But sometimes it's very obvious that you focused on your game, you don't have a title screen, and it's very minor things, but it's very fun to add a proper title screen to your game instead of just throwing the player in. And it can be very satisfying to have this more complete experience, in my opinion. And it's not like a big thing to do. So I think that's one of the main reasons I usually do it. Uh, Obviously, to have fun. Like, hopefully, you had fun during your jam. I hope that you have a nice jam experience. And I'm not gonna lie, working on your game post jam is not the same, in my opinion, to working on it during the jam. Possibly you're not at a site that's catered to that. It's like this situation where you have an experience that's not exactly where you're not exactly focused on doing this one thing. Like if you're my situation is like reading books. It's I'm better at reading books when I'm in a space that allows it. So I'm not gonna say it's gonna be the same working on your jam outside of a site, but I think it can still be very fun. Uh, the third reason that's very obvious is to keep learning. So you were making this game, this project, in a setting where you did have a time constraint, and perhaps you made a few hacky implementations of things, or didn't fully animate something you wanted to animate, whatever it may be, you probably have a few loose ends that you skipped because it was hard to do. And you can do that afterwards. Make your game work as it should, and or rather, make your game work as well as you can make it work during the jam, and then come back to it and maybe implement things in a better way. And it's also a really good time to look at what other people have done in the game. Maybe you probably did not have time to do a lot of code review or check out how exactly technical artists implemented their stuff on their end, and I think it's a really good time to look at what's been done in the game that you didn't really go over during the jam because you were focused on your own part of the game. So it's a really good moment to learn, and even just for your own, the stuff you implement, even for the stuff that you implemented, it's a really good moment to like look over it and be like, could I have done this? Is there a better way to do this? And I'd say a lot of times there is. um, Not always proud of the code I've made during jams, but it worked. And then you can fix it. Or you can't, or sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes when it works. And you can focus on the next part, which is like continue to create. Because once you finish the jam, and I know this is different from site to site, it's always been the case at Let's Play Tokyo, but having participated in other sites, other global game jam sites, not every site is set up to be great at getting to play other people's games. And so I really encourage you to yes, exactly. Yeah, some implementations. It's sad because I didn't have time to go into my code to find examples directly in the code, but I know there are some. But yeah, play other people's games after. Try like at Let's Play um, at Let's Games Tokyo. You'll have the chance to play other people's games at the end, which is really nice. Even everyone gets to do a little presentation about the game they've made during the jam. So you get a really nice view of everyone's like what everyone's made, and everyone also gets to view what you've made. I forgot to change the title of the stream. Let me do that. I'll just make the title of my presentation okay, that's good. So, where was I? Yes. So, other people will get to play your game, and that means you will get the first, maybe not the first, but the first continuous feedback about your game from the others at the site. So, it's the first time you'll get like feedback outside of the team, possibly. Obviously, you maybe talked to other people during the jam, and honestly, I feel like it's a lot more rare to get people to try your game during the jam. Maybe you'll show off some parts. So, in my experience, it's really the first time at the end that you get to hear feedback from others for your game. And it's kind of crazy how much that can give you in the creative process. It's kind of like writing a book. At the end, you have your first draft, and if you end it there, well, you just have a first draft, and everyone knows the first draft of a book is not the one you keep. The same is true for a lot of for every creative process. In this case, you'll get your feedback at the end, and you'll see that you want to change something, not just like code wise, but like gameplay wise. I'll have an example later, but getting the feedback from players is a lot different than just playing your game yourself. You know how your game works, you know its quirks, you get around them and you never notice, and then someone plays it and sometimes they don't even say anything. You just look at how they play and you're like, oh no, there's a problem. And sometimes, even if it's not a big problem, it's like, okay, I need to change this. I want to change this. It's the first feedback you get, and yeah, it's there that you want, that I'm usually like, okay, I want to get back to point one where the this is for the satisfaction. There would be a better way for like player control or instructions that are unclear. I want to change this. I want to keep working on it. So wait till you get there and you'll see what I mean, probably. So a few examples. This was the title screen for Jumping the Gun, the game I made not last year at Global Gaming Jam, but the year before, so 2023. Oh my god, we're 2025. So yeah, 2023, Jumping the Gun. It's a game about a bunny, and as you can see, this title screen was done very fast, and it works, sure, but one thing I did change was, okay, this is very blurry, but like it's a GIF and I made it really quickly, but it gives a better idea to like how satisfying it was to change getting this set up for the title screen. Like there's a, it's animated, it gives you the idea of what the game is, and it's just nicer to look at. I was really happy with just making this. It's not much, but it it didn't take that long. It's not a big change, but I was really satisfied with it. So even small changes can like bring a lot out of your game that you didn't maybe have the time to implement or didn't think about implementing. So think about even just the small changes that can add a lot to your game. Oh, for some reason this is not aligned properly. It was when I made the PowerPoint, but now it's not. But in any case, this is the last Y to release it as a full game. I kept it separately because technically I have never done this, in the sense that I've never taken a game jam game and made it as a full release paid game. I've worked on one game that I released and was much bigger than the original jam, but I've never done this part, so I feel like I can't speak on it, and I feel like it's a different experience in itself. It's a much bigger endeavor. I believe CJ and Maybes have released their released game Terra Nova was initially a game jam. So it is something that people do. I just don't feel I don't feel like I'm in a position to talk about it as much as people that have done this. All I know is that it is a lot more work. So, and I guess the point I want to say mainly here is that I don't think you should go in a jam thinking that afterwards you're going to build a full version of what you make in the jam. I don't think that's how you should view your jam experience or have like the expectation of for your jam experience. But it is something that people do, and if that's what you want to do afterwards, go for it. It's just a lot of work. The closest thing, oh god, absolutely not. It took 3 years to polish that game. Yes, exactly. Thank you for the concrete example. So the closest thing that I made that was kind of like a full release, even though it's not on Steam, it's just on itch and it's still free, was the update I made for Elephant Grass, because I submitted it to a super festival organized by an Hand Eye Society in Toronto, and it got accepted, and it gave me the motivation to kind of update it completely. There's a lot of changes to their most recent build. I made it so that people could put their own images and text in so that they'd have their own prompts. And so it was a really big update. I did slightly overscope the update or misjudge some of the changes I decided to make for it, but I was really satisfied with how it turned out in the end. The gameplay has not changed at all. It is out. Yeah, if you want to, actually, if you want to play it, I should probably link this. Give me 1 second. Yeah, it is available. So it has more images. The screenshot feature was already there, but yeah, this to give you a rundown on the game. It's you make memes to make your friends laugh, and initially it didn't even have a screenshot feature. I forget where in the presentation I have that as an example, but I'll get to it. A lot of added things. So it's definitely the one I probably worked the most after a jam. But like I said, it's nothing like releasing a full. It didn't feel like the same as releasing like a whole game based on your jam, like CJ and Matt have. So, next is when. So, I wonder if it's the next slide or if it's a slide after this one, but I don't think you should work on every single jam games and make a post jam build for them. I think it's a bit of a situational thing where you could pick and choose which one you want to work on. Yeah, it is the next slide. So first off, on the right here, this is my itch page, my initial itch page. I have two. I have one for pressed elephant and I have one for just general. You can see it here if you want a live version, but as you can see, it's sorted in a very specific way. I have polished jams, I have older game jams, and I have various other game jams. So the polished jams are the jams I have worked on post jams. Uh, older game jams, I'd say they they have they're a bit hard to play, but they're playable. To be fair, the multiplayer one I haven't tested in a while. I don't know if anything broke, but I didn't touch them after the jam. I just think they're a nice experience. Um, you might get stuck in home frequency because the puzzles are questionable. And then various other game jams I have not really touched post jam. Uh, I want, I still want them to be there as games I've made, worked on during the jams, but they're definitely not as polished. They have major flaws or major um, features missing or flawed, or they feel very much like in like early prototype stage, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here with the when is it a good time to work on a jam after you're finished. um, I'd say it's best to work on them when there are small changes to do that are easy to do, uh, like the title screen. The For jumping the gun, that was an easy thing to do, and it was really worth it. Um, or when there are some big changes that make a big difference, like any missing instructions. I'll get to that. I have an example for that right after. Oh, I noticed that I am blocking my last point. Give me 1 second here. All right. So it's a good thing to think about in terms of like how much is there that I need to change to make it better, or like to make it so that it's fun to do and satisfying to do. Because if I take, for example, my various other games, um, the first, let's say the second one, Lost Along the Way, was like this kind of visual novel game, and we kind of overscoped it. And you could go through like one story part from beginning to end, but we didn't really have time to implement any of the other branching stuff. It was a big endeavor. Um, and if you were to pick one of the games to play on my page, I would not suggest that one. It is there, but that's the type of thing I mean by small changes or changes that make a big difference. Um, it's the type of game that would have been hard to do that. It's not easy to like just, there would have been too many things to change. There would have been too many things to add, and it didn't feel like it was worth it. Um, Obviously, it changes from person to person, but same thing is true with projects. So that's the next point that I want to look at is like, do you like it already? So I feel like it's a really good time to work on a post jam build if you're playing your game or you see people play your game and you like what you have already. It's a really good sign. It's how prototyping works. You've made something and it's fun to play, or you like it and you want to add to it. Um, it gives you the motivation to work on it. And so this is again something that you'll probably just see at the end when you're done, jamming when you play your game, when other people play your game. Um, and that's why the polished game jams at the top are there. They're all games that I like really enjoy playing myself. Um, and so I decided to build on them. And it makes it easier too, working on something that you feel you already like just adds to the experience. And my last point here is maybe not the one I want to like focus too much on, but it is kind of important uh, because from my experience, uh, it's not everyone that is going to be working on a post jam build. Um, Everyone's busy. Some people have are not into making games as much as others. I mean, in my case, it's I've not presented myself. I'll do it at the end, I guess. But I'm an indie game dev, so like even in my free time, I work on projects, and so having someone in the team that is just trying out making games and they enjoy their experience, but it might not be their main thing that they do or that they want to do. Um, and so, depending on who your team is, you might be the only person that wants to keep working on it. So, it's probably best to have changes that don't require your whole team to make changes, um, make those changes. So if they are changes that you can make by yourself or with like one other team member, keeping it even smaller than your if you had a bigger team, I think that can help um, in that situation. So do consider that. I think it is a good moment where okay, I can make this change by myself. It's not too hard, or it's something I know how to do, or it's something that I want to learn how to do. I think that's a good situation for uh, making changes. Ah, yes, the other type of when. If you are going to make changes, I'm in my own way again. If you are going to make changes, if you want to make them as early as possible. The motivation is still there. You still want to work on it. If you wait too long, you are going to miss that window of motivation and you're going to forget about what changes you want to make. Well, I mean, maybe not. Maybe I'm projecting a bit here. I would have to write them down to not forget, but it is this situation where the best time to work on your game post jam is really post jam. Like a week or two after you sit down on the weekend and you do the changes you want to do, and then you finish what you set out to do. Don't wait a month. Don't wait 2 months. The more you wait, the less likely you are to make the changes you want to make. Um, I'm talking from experience. I mean, all this is talking from experience, but it is how it is. I'm sure other people would confirm that it's a lot harder to work on your jam game the further you are away from when you first release the first build. All right, so here are a few examples of different types of changes I've made in the games. In Jumping the Gun, there were some problems with how the assets would be sorted, the 2D asset would be sorted. I forget what exactly was the problem, but it wasn't a hard fix and it made a big difference. So, definitely something to consider. Um, all these are anecdotal changes, like you might not even have a 2D game, but it's just an example of a small change that makes a big difference. That's worth it, in my opinion. So yeah, we had problems like the way the asset was cut, like you could see the house itself had the shadow of its houseness, and so the bunny would be under it if it was on its side. I don't know if I changed the asset or if I just put stuff, uh, obstacles next to it. I think it might be the latter, so you just couldn't go there. Easy fix. um, and sometimes small changes make a big difference. So in this game where you play as a piggy bank, I think this one was for the Ludum Dare. Um, when we showed this game off, the site that we were at had some like judges. Uh, I forget which one it was in Montreal before I left for Japan, so like 2019. And um, if you look on the top left here, you'll see that it's just empty, and you'd be correct because that is quite literally the camera background color for Unity. That's just gray. You might recognize the color. And that's not a great look. And the judges were like, "Oh, it's not like visually super appealing. That shouldn't be there." And I mean, they were right, and we didn't get um, placed at the site. But what's funny is I just changed this, just made the wall bigger. The gameplay hadn't really changed. Maybe I had fixed one thing, but when we actually submitted it for the Ludum Dare, uh, uh, not compo, the jam, as a team, we got like top 100. I think we were maybe like close to 50, um, and so it really didn't reflect the the jam that the it really didn't reflect the not post jam build, but like on the site where we were, the bugs and the visual changes that we didn't have time to change, that we changed like maybe a few hours later, um, went from like not really being a noticeable game at our site to being in the top 100 in the actual game jam. So very different. Uh, Big changes, but um, big difference for like small changes. Oh, this one is something I like feel should have been in the initial build. Um, what is this? This is just the page in between the before the player plays this part of the game. I just didn't have any instructions in my first build, and so this was completely new. It was very useful and should have been there from the start. So this is the type of thing that also doesn't really take that long, and you should definitely consider adding if there are some missing instructions that are needed in your game, uh, because when you're not playing in person, you can't just explain to the others what to the players like what they're supposed to do. Uh, so very important to add. Oh, it made it's also easier once you like show off your game and you don't have to explain it every time. um, so this was a title screen for Elfin Grass. Well, not the title screen. Like it just threw you in the game. Have a title screen and instructions. It really helps. This was the title screen now. Much different. Much more useful. I had options it's a big change, but it wasn't that big of a change. Here is, I don't have, so here, what's missing here are a few things. I noticed that people didn't really have a lot of options when picking words, and they also didn't know when they were running out of time to make the meme. And I think I forgot to take a screenshot of the latest version, but essentially there are more word choices and there's a timer indicating how much time you have left now. Not big changes, but those were more changes that I noticed were needed from people that played the game, seeing how they played, and they were like, oh, the choices are a bit limited, and I don't know, like, no timer, not useful. So now it's different, but I don't think I have a screenshot for how it changed. But you can go download it, it's free. Now these are bigger changes. So the mic, this game uses the mic, your mic. And so my current project also has games that use the mic, and what I did was just import my mic detection thing from my current project to Elephant Grass, and this made it so that the mic functionality of this game was better, since it was based on my other project, which I had taken more time to work on, tweaked it a lot more, and this is like the main thing of like the way that this game scores is that it checks the mic. So having like a kind of hacky version was not that useful here. So it was a good thing to change from having this other system. All right, so this is kind of the last point I wrote about on how do you go about making those changes. And I don't have too much to say on this, in the sense that it's a bit of how you should look at it. I think that post-jam builds are a bit like a jam in their own way, in the sense that if you're going to sit down and work on a game you've made, you should probably scope once more. Like, what do you want to change? How much time is it going to take? And are you going to be by yourself to make those changes? Are you going to, like, what changes do you want to make? And think about like what you can do first, and give yourself a certain amount of time to do it. Coming back to like saying that you should work on your jam post jam like soon after, this is kind of part of it, because are you giving yourself one more weekend? Are you giving yourself two more weekends? I think that you should consider that within making a post jam build, because you have other things. Everyone's busy, and maybe this, you want to make some changes, but also don't overburden yourself with making those changes. Give yourself a time limit. That's how you made your jam in the first place, and that, I think, is how you should view making changes to the jam afterwards. The second point is kind of like one of the ones that, obviously it depends on your site, obviously it depends on your team, but it's also to kind of remind, maybe if you are a first time jammer and you don't know how big team size should be, it's not even me. Everyone says the same thing. Your team size, it probably should be between 3 and 5 people. What happens if you are more than 5 is that someone has to do team management, and in my case, it's usually me. So I try to keep it down to 5 because I don't want to do team management because I know I can, I know I'm good at it, but I don't feel like doing it during a jam. Team management can be fun, but like, I'm just here to chill. My personal ideal size for teams is 3, but that's just a personal thing. 4 if like it's a composer, because they tend to have less work to do and be a bit like on the side more than the other members of the team. But essentially, what it allows you to have the suggested team size is that, well, 3 to 5 people. If you need help from one of your team members, then it's much easier, uh, in my opinion, to like kind of you got to talk to your team more. Hopefully, when you were only 3, like you split the time. The less team members you have, the more you interacted with each one. Um, you built up this rapport between your team members, and it's easier, in my opinion, to get people to, oh, hey, you want to change this? I can't really do this on my own. Let's work on. Do you want to work on this just like a few hours more, like next weekend? It's much easier when you're a smaller team. And the thing is, also, if you're a smaller team, it's likely that you scoped appropriately, hopefully. Please scope appropriately for the jam. Um, and so your jam has been scoped for that team size, and so changes that you have to do are hopefully doable with, um, your game size is smaller, and so the changes that you have to make are usually smaller, and so it's easier. So the team and project size is important, in my opinion, on how to get that done afterwards. And the last part is kind of like how to find the motivation to work on your jam post jam. Uh, if you so happen to not work on it right after the jam for whatever reason, one thing you can do, I've never personally done it, so I feel like I'm not talking from experience here, but more from general knowledge, of knowing about some jams that are just about finishing projects. On Itch, there are a bunch of jams. It's probably the best place to find game jams, but there are some jams that are essentially finish your project type of jams. So if you had some endeavors that you had some plans to change your jam, but you never got around to it, and you've lost the motivation, well, there are jams that are essentially made to finish jams, or finished projects. It doesn't have to be a jam, but like you can participate in those uh, events to kind of give you the motivation to keep working on it. Um, it kind of happened to me. It wasn't exactly a jam, but like I said, when Elephant Grass got accepted at Superfest, Super Festival, it gave me the motivation to update it more fully. And so I think that's one of those situations where if you decide to work on it later, but you want to be motivated, there are some options to do that. They are limited, but they do exist. And yeah, let's see. Yes, that is my talk. I said the end here, but technically, if there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. It's a bit of a less technical talk, so I imagined it was going to be shorter than last year where I did Unity to Godot, but I imagine it was going to take about an hour, and then plus questions. I guess I'll maybe just mention a few things about myself because I didn't do it at the beginning. I have my itch page that's on the left, QR code, blue sky, center QR code. Is there any advice you'd give to people who suffer from scope creep? So think of like, I'm prone to scope creep. I'm very prone to scope creep. I am the one that kind of usually needs to be held back from scoping, but I guess that puts me in a good position to talk about it. Don't just focus on gameplay first, feature by feature. I think that I have a bit of a perfectionist personality and tend to want everything to be finished. Everything I set out to do to be like finished the way I want, and I think that falls into scope creep more than any other types of personalities, because you think of an idea and you kind of want to add to it, and then you just want to keep adding to it, and I think if you just build your game feature by feature, like it's fine to scope creep, but like kind of like prioritize. If you're gonna scope creep, prioritize your scope creep. And I think Elephant Grass is a good example for this because I was doing it by myself last year, and I was like, I want this amount of images and I want this in it, and in the end, I was missing a bunch of things when the jam ended at the site. Oh, sorry, alarm. But when I presented it to the site and when people played it, I could see people having fun, and I could see that what I had made was partially what I had set out to do. It wasn't the full thing, but it was definitely like you could see the idea, and sometimes that's you should think of it as that being enough, and like I don't know if that helps with the scope creep itself, but I feel like if you manage your ideas in a way that you prioritize them, at the very least, what that does is you'll get some ideas to what to add afterwards, and don't worry too much if you don't, if that makes sense. And obviously, there's the situation where if it's your first jam, first time jammers, take your idea and like cut it in half and then cut it in half again, because you can always add to stuff much more easily than you can cut from them once you get started. Yeah, I think that's the usual easy answer, but I think it is also a bit unrealistic when you talk about cutting stuff. I think it's easier to have a lot and then prioritize the right thing. Maybe that comes with experience, though. Yeah, so you can follow me on Blue Sky. You can also check out Elfie's Steam page, which is the project I'm working on at the moment. I am back in Canada. I'm uh, working on it full time now because I don't have any other jobs, but I'm essentially freelancing, looking for freelance work for like Godot or Unity uh, in the meantime, um, or waiting for funding. We'll see how that goes. It would be nice to keep working on it full time without any worries for anything else. Yeah, I applied for funding for the Canadian Media Funds in October and I haven't heard back from them, which is a mix of a good thing and wait thing. I hope so too. Thank you. Yeah, it's quite cold. It was like minus 17 degrees Celsius yesterday. Not Tokyo weather. I do miss Tokyo. Imagine being able to bike in winter. People do it here, but I can't. Waiting, waiting is really hard. It's like it's kind of like a limbo because if I get it, um, that's kind of why I'm applying mostly to freelance and contract based work at the moment because I don't want to do that to any other studios too. Like, oh, I got funding, see ya. Nah, that's not nice. I just want to be able to like help people with their projects and get a bit of living money and wait till I get a better idea of my situation. Most people in Canada don't have nose. No, I'm just kidding. It's not too bad. What I'm surprised by is how few people wear masks here in winter because I'm like, if you wear a mask, your face isn't cold. Just wear a mask. I keep wearing my mask. I feel like everyone thinks I'm sick, but it's just because it's just so much warmer to wear a mask outside than anything else. Um, but yeah, oh, if you're planning to use Godot, feel free to reach out to me on Blue Sky if you have questions. I'm not like I I sadly have not contributed to uh, the open source project that is Godot. I've never got into open source and GitHub contribution stuff. It's something I've looked at, but like the barrier to entry always like has left me out of it, and like I'm more into making games than working on the engine to be honest. More of a gameplay programmer in general, but I can try to answer your question, help you if you have any, if you're stuck with anything Godot or Unity related. Probably more Godot questions. Unity I feel like is a bit more well documented and there are more resources, but so it makes sense if I get any Godot questions. I think signals are confusing at first, but they're very useful, very useful. Um, but yeah, feel free to reach out. I hope that you get some. I hope you have fun at whichever jam site that you're at, uh, and don't overscope. But yeah, I guess I'll maybe just ask again if there are any questions, any other questions, or if I can think of any other things that I forgot to say. I had notes down on paper and I looked at them once. And so I'm wondering if I forgot anything. Let me read through it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I did write something about comparing your fun game to image composition and photography back from my point about like if you already like it, it's a good time to work on your game, or rather, if you already like the game you've made, it's the best time to add to it because it's not only motivating, but it's like uh, image composition for photography, as in it's a lot harder to fix post production something that's like kind of you're not too sure, like, oh, there's a flaw in the actual uh, game design that you don't know if you can really like fix. There's a problem with it. That's kind of like the image composition in photography. You can't fix image composition once the shot has been taken. You kind of have to take a new shot, and I feel like that's true for game design wise. If there's a problem with the game design, you kind of just have to change the foundations, and that's not the best time to um, keep working on your game because it's not something you'll fix easily. This is not to demotivate you to work on your game. It's just maybe like thinking of like when is the best time to work on a game jam, post jam. Is there anything else? Yeah, I made a lot of comparisons to photography and writing, like first drafts. Um, a game jam very much is a first draft, and getting people to play it for the first time is essentially getting your first readers and seeing how it's flawed in a good way. Um, but yeah, I guess this I had written. I don't know if I wrote it in the slides itself, but the part where related to this, the jam being kind of. I might have taken it out of the slides, but I had written that game jams in general don't encourage. Not encourage. Encourage isn't the right word, but game jams in general don't are game jams in general are very much first draft focus, which I feel is to their detriment because you essentially get your first feedback at the end from the players around your site, and it's kind of sad because you get so much out of that feedback, and you could make so much changes from that feedback that could bring your game up a lot. If if I was like a game design teacher, which I'm not, but if I was, it I would definitely be in my course that I make like a game jam like project, and then have the feedback, and then put the make the students gather the feedback, and then the second game jam has to be their same game but change with the feedback, because it's it's so important to get for no matter the creative field. It's just you get so much out of um, player feedback, first readers, whichever you're talking about. Yeah, I think that's about it. So if there are no other questions, might end this here. No other questions? If you're just joining in, this is the end. I'm very sorry. It is quite early in Montreal. You're very welcome. I hope that you have a wonderful time at your site in Tokyo. Once again, I guess it's a good moment to mention it. Uh, this presentation has been part of Let's Games Tokyo, a global game jam site in Tokyo, Roppongi, which I've participated many times. CJ and Maybes uh, are the organizers. It's Illuminescence in the chat. And uh, yes, there are still remote tickets. I mean, makes sense. Remote tickets are, uh, I imagine, endless, but maybe to some limits. Thank you. I'm lucky enough that the site I'm at is right next to where I am, so I don't have to walk out in the cold too long to get there. Um, and yeah, it's a great jam site in Tokyo. It is sold out. Um, yes, exactly. Thank you, Farfama. And hello, I hope you're doing well in Tokyo. Yes, it is. It is very important to keep that motivation post jam, not sit on it for like months and then lose it. The best time to work on your jam is soon after. And yeah, I hope you have a. If you are participating in global game jam wherever you are, I hope you have a nice jam time. And again, if you have any questions about Godot, feel free to reach out to me on Blue Sky. Hopefully, I can help you. And yeah, that will be all. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day or a good night. It is probably around 10 p.m. in Tokyo, so I'll see you around.